I think for me, the thing that stands out in my background is the fact that I'm the firstborn in the family, and I have a number of siblings. And by default, firstborns do take responsibility. And I think early on in my life, I found myself in places of responsibility and leadership, especially that my father died quite early, and I had to take responsibility for my siblings, and that journey can be quite difficult to navigate. It means really unifying the family, being the leader, settling disputes amicably, and also being prepared to tell the truth, and sometimes the hard truth when people go off. So I believe it's those leadership skills that I brought to the firm and have helped me in my journey as a partner. I became a partner quite early in my career, and I think my first partnership role was rather accidental. It wasn't really well thought through and planned. I got an offer to become a partner from a colleague that I had worked for in a law firm. She was already a partner in that firm. So when she departed and decided to set up a partnership, she asked me to join, and I made the decision to join. So in that sense, it was a bit haphazard, but I learned valuable lessons being a partner in that firm, although I eventually left, which lessons I used in my next partnership. In terms of requirements, I think I can speak about both the internal requirements of law firms and the requirements of the Law Association of Zambia, which is the regulator, so to speak, of lawyers in Zambia. So in terms of the internal requirements, I think this largely depends on individual firms. I'm sure these requirements for some firms are contained in the partnership deed and for admission of new partners. In some cases, it may be the requirements may be contained in other policy documents. And I think largely it depends on the size and the complexity of the firm. So in our jurisdiction, people become partners either, by partnering with their peers, usually people that they went with to university, but sometimes they are promoted through the ranks in the firms that they're already working for. And the internal documents will usually have the terms and the conditions attached to them becoming a partner, and this would include things like capital contributions, levels of responsibility, not only work responsibility, but also in the governance of the firm. And in terms of the requirements of the Law Association of Zambia, these requirements, in my view, are not very stringent. I think basically you have to show that, first of all, you are 5 years at the bar. Secondly, that you have a decent office from which you operate. And then you need to get at least 2 sponsors. This may be people that you've worked with in the past to vouch for you that you have the capacity to set up a law firm. So basically those are the requirements. In my view, they are not too stringent as far as the Law Society is concerned, but for internal purposes, I think it largely depends on the policies and the procedures of the individual firms. You're right when you say that the profession is still dominated by men. That is true not only of my country, Zambia, but of many African countries, and I believe across the globe. But I should hasten to say that in the recent years, we've seen more women, not only women who are senior, but even women who are relatively junior, pick up the challenge to set up their firms and become partners. In terms of that experience in my current firm, as you may be aware, we are a women-founded and women-led firm at the moment. That is not to say that in future we won't be admitting any male partners. So that challenge in my current setup is not there. But you are aware that I've been a partner before with men. And I think the biggest hurdle personally that I faced, and I mean, I wouldn't really call it a hurdle, but it's maybe an unconscious bias where women generally find that they do more of the administrative and finance work in the law firms, and the men tend to concentrate more on transactions. I think what that does is that it lessens the time that women require to do the core work and also to pick up new skills or new transactions and emerging areas of the law, while the men folk are developing in that sense. So for me, I think administrative roles should fairly be distributed in law firms where there are both men and women. And I think this comes about, it's a default. I think women by default are managers and they tend to handle administration better. So the men usually will allow them to play that role, but it does take away from the time that they need to focus on transactional work. If I'm being honest, that balance for me doesn't come easily. And it's, even when it comes, it's never a perfect balance. But then along the way, you learn to cope and you pick up habits that help you to have a healthy balance between your work and your private life and your family life. So for me, I do little things like when I feel really stressed, I'll go for a massage, I'll go for a pedicure, or I'll simply go for a retreat, where I go by myself to a quiet place and just unwind. And sometimes when I'm not able to do those things, I'll just, sit outside at home and take in some fresh air. I'll go for a walk, I'll exercise just so that my stamina is up. But then I also listen to my body. So when my body says it's time to stop, I will stop and make time to rest and also make time to spend with my family. And for women, really, it also depends at what stage your family is at. So for instance, in my case, there was a time early in my career that my children were very young. And of course, I had to spend more time looking after them, but also try to juggle the work. But now all my children are teenagers. And in that sense, I have a bit more time to concentrate on work and do things for myself. So for a woman, I think it depends at where you are in terms of family life and how early or how late you have your children, if at all you decide to have children. I think I would simply say they should not be afraid. I think a lot of young people, especially women, are robbed of the opportunity to set up partnerships because they simply think it's very hard. And to be truthful, it can be hard, depending on which country and which market you're operating in. But I would simply say, do not be afraid, because what you fear is not what will happen. If you are determined, you are focused, you have planned properly, and you're willing to put in the hard work, you are willing to learn and unlearn and embrace new opportunities as they emerge, then you are in a position to create a successful partnership. So I would simply say, do not be afraid. Listen to yourself and follow what your heart tells you. That said, some people prefer to work in corporate, some people prefer to work in government, and that is perfectly okay. But it should never be fear that hinders you from stepping out and setting up your own firm and becoming a partner, or even accepting an opportunity or invitation to become one in an existing firm. I mean, like anyone who has spent a couple of years in the profession, you begin to think about what next, or at least about what else can I do, even as I continue as a partner. And to be honest, when I read that question, I started to feel old, like, oh, is it that time to retire? But it's a very important thing to think about because you need to be clear where you are going to end up. So for me, I guess it's still a work in progress. I'm still refining my thoughts, but I have particular interest in real estate, and I dream about creating, a beautiful space somewhere away from the hustle and bustle of town, where people can come and unwind and relax. A beautiful place, a clean place, a place that connects people with nature. I'm also interested in farming. I've tried farming, it didn't quite work, but it's still something I think I would want to explore. So yes, those are the things that I'm looking at beyond partnership and maybe in a few years to come. Unfortunately, in our country, people don't necessarily retire from partnerships. I know in the bigger international firms, the path to retirement is very well defined and very clearly managed. And I'm sure those are practices that we can also begin to learn from and begin to implement. Yeah, so, and of course, you also want to be involved in the communities that you are part of. And I have a passion for education, especially for girls. And it's something that I've done in a very informal way to sponsor individual girls to go through school and just see them succeeding in their chosen careers. It's definitely something that I want to keep growing. Yes, and just see that people can be empowered through some financial help and mentorship that they get from me.